Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, we've got Karen bosses getting taught lessons they won't forget. Guys, the stories are so satisfying today. I hope you enjoy them. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So to start, I used to work in a restaurant a while ago. We had a front salad bar, a buffet with a salad bar, as well as things like a juice bar, ice cream counter, and of course, a small alcohol room with a bar. The place was so popular and also a bit expensive, but somehow so underpaid, understaffed, and poorly managed by someone named Jenny. Jenny's the daughter and the only child of the owner of the restaurant. She's extremely spoiled, almost always gets her way, and she has a temper where she'll get pissed off and just lay into the person for an hour straight. She used to come in screaming at everyone for nothing, and she often made racist or nasty jokes. She would push people to come in when they're sick and then ask why we were so slow. Just the typical manager from hell. Marco was the other boss. He was one of the kitchen managers, and he was a son of a family friend and a beloved member of the community. His management skills were equally, if not worse, than Jenny's. The guy was always micromanaging, criticizing our work, blaming random people for things, and giving extreme time constraints for tasks. Also, he would forget to do things and then blame other people. He would then go around criticizing people for their time management or responsibility. Anytime we reported that something was broken or something wasn't working, he just told us to figure it out, and nothing would be done until Jenny came in screaming at everyone. The worst thing he made us do was encouraging everyone to smile, forcing everyone to sometimes have overly fake smiles on their faces. And the thing is, our turnover was insane. We had people coming in and out, and they couldn't take it. There were people who were suddenly hired to take on big positions despite having no idea what they were doing, or they would join with less than a full day of training just because the place was so desperate. The waitresses were paid less than $4 an hour, and the place was so highly understaffed, some of them were doing way more than they were hired to do. Some often did dishwasher duties, front manager duties, cleaning jobs, you name it. I want to say dishwashing was the worst, as 3 different people would often come to work drunk or high every day just to tolerate everything. This brings me to my coworker, DJ. Now, my coworker DJ was a really hard-working guy who was the only one who seemed to give a damn about his job. He was a fast, efficient worker, and he could often handle everything on his own. On top of dishwashing, he was also doing many other tasks, like helping the waitresses clean and literally monitoring food that was cooking. And he would keep track of orders because the manager Marco and the chef wanted to mess around and go stand by the door and smoke. There were days where staff members would break down or get sick pulling a double shift, and he did everything for them as there was no choice. With that said, my job was preparing and filling food items for the main salad bar in front every day, and some days I also did salad bar in the buffet. Like everyone else, I had other things to do as part of my normal job, including making food for reservations, preparing and stocking the juice bar, helping move stock into the freezers and fridge. The list goes on and on. Where they needed me, I would go. And this was all for a little more than minimum wage. On buffet days, I did have a partner, but that didn't matter. She would do some work, but most of the time, she just stood around talking to her cousin who worked there while watching me work. If that wasn't bad enough, both she and Marco would take breaks every now and then to criticize my work or my speed. Basically, everything was held together by DJ and me. We were teenagers, hyped up on rockstar drinks, so we took whatever was coming to us. We kept everything going so well that we got scheduled to work almost every day and every weekend. Jenny recognized our work and she gave us free soda privilege, and we got raises 2 times in 5 months. Not significant raises, mind you, 10 cents each time. Now, because we were the 2 hardest workers there was always so much pressure on DJ and I. One horrible Saturday, there were like 3 times as many people as usual. on top of all bars and buffet being open. I clocked in, and I found out that Marco let go of DJ the afternoon before. Absolutely no one knew why, including DJ. And I'm just really assuming it was Marco firing him to bring in a buddy, which they always did. I already had zero hope for the day, and the only thing fueling me was the customers and my paycheck, of course. In just the first hour, I passed Marco at least 5 times trying to get things done. There was one time that we made eye contact while I was helping a waitress, but at some point, I went to the freezer in the back to help load some ice cream. He happened to walk in at the same time that I was standing there doing nothing, waiting for my coworker to bring in the dolly. He gave me this frustrated look and he said, "What the F are you doing? Get back to work." He then caught me maybe half an hour later while I was coming from the back of the kitchen to mop up some spilled water. He said something once again about me not working. The final time he caught me, I was in the freezer, again looking at inventory to see what kind of fruit we still had in stock. And that's when Marco had enough. The guy starts screaming at me saying, "This place is busy as F and you're just standing in the freezer for like 4 effing hours. So go effing home." I just gave him this look like, what the F? And before I can get another word out, the guy just stopped me and he reiterated that I was done for the night, saying, "I said go effing home." When he screamed it in my face, that's when I decided I wasn't arguing with him. This was not my problem. So I just tell Marco, "Okay, thanks." I then took my apron off and headed out. Both the employee doors were blocked by trash cans, and my partner was standing there with a whole cart of things talking to her cousin, so I just went to use the main side door in front of the restaurant. Jenny of course sees me, and she asked where I was going. I just put on a smile, and I said, "Man, Marco is the best guy ever. He just randomly came up to me, and he started shouting at me to go home. I got the night off." Hearing me say that, Jenny's face went from confused to shock to livid in the span of 1 second. She quickly told me, "Don't go just yet." She then storms into the kitchen, screaming, "Marco, what are you doing?" I just pretended to not hear her over the music and the customers. I turned around and left. And let me tell you what happened after I left. I got over 10 phone calls, but I simply let my phone ring. After the place closed, I finally texted Marco back to give an apology, and I sucked up to him in the most condescending way. I came back the next morning, and the place was a complete disaster. Marco and Jenny came in looking dead tired because they spent the rest of the night and overtime just busting ass, just trying to keep things going. There were actually dishes and trash bags piled up, and both the buffet and kitchen were wrecked, because Jenny and her dad didn't want to keep the workers late and have to pay them overtime. The best part is, the restaurant had to close for the summer. They posted all these job opportunities in schools and on Facebook, and they eventually did open back up. But I never answered, and DJ did not accept amends, so it was a whole spiral. Because of me leaving and DJ being fired, they couldn't find somebody who could work as hard and as fast for that type of pay. They had to close down their ice cream and minimize their buffet, and now they close earlier because they can't handle it. Marco's the only other manager now, and he's still asking me to come back. What a compliance that was, guys, and honestly, with Marco and Jenny running the place how they did, I'm actually surprised it lasted that long. And seriously, you'd think that with a place that relies on workers that much, that the bosses would appreciate the staff, but no. We'll just treat you like complete garbage, and when you do leave and the place goes down the drain, we'll beg you to come back. Like, the saying that anyone can be replaced is true, but honestly guys, some people's work ethic and how they perform based on their pay cannot be replicated. And in this case, OP and DJ were definitely holding that place together. I believe it 100%. So this one's a long read for you, and hopefully it's not boring, but it's been nice typing this out. Several years ago, I used to work at an agency that hired us out as short-term temporary workers. These jobs pretty much consisted of stuff that company employees couldn't be bothered to do, so they got someone in to sort out. It wasn't great, but I had to make ends meet. Anyways, one of these jobs was for 150 hours at 5 weeks of office administration. There wasn't much more information to go on, but a job's a job. The office turned out to be quite small. It was a stuffy little building at the back of an industrial estate. I was told to report to somebody named Beryl. She's the Karen of the story. When I turned up, I was met by a rather grumpy-looking old lady having a cigarette by the front door. This was Beryl. The woman didn't even say hello or ask me my name. She just showed me in, pointed at this enormous pile of boxes full of paperwork, and she said to me, "This all needs to be scanned in. There's 2 scanners connected to a computer there. Off you go. Let someone know if you need help." That was literally what she said, and all she said to me when I got to work my first day. So off I went. That pile of boxes was to be my job for the next month and a bit. And I thought to myself, oh joy. Now, this office was predominantly young men, with Beryl being the only other woman. She was never married, which you do need to know for a part of this tale. The woman was in her 50s, and she spent more time smoking than working. And without being rude, clearly she didn't look after herself. Because I was the only other girl at the place, it was quite flattering to have a bunch of these guys pop by my workstation for a chat occasionally. After a few days of scanning, Beryl visits my cubicle, and the first words out of her mouth are, "Stop talking while you're at work." She apparently wasn't happy that I spent too much time talking and not enough time working. At this point, I'm confused. While I didn't have any metrics or targets, I was pretty consistently working through this mountain of paperwork. I just got the impression that Beryl didn't like the attention I was getting. I just pointed out to her that I haven't left my desk apart from to go to the toilet. If someone's over here to talk to me, then that's fine, as I can talk and scan at the same time, like I'm doing right now. She of course wasn't happy, and she turned away, calling out, "Just do your damn job, that's all you're here for." Some of the other guys had heard this, and they popped by my desk later, and they said not to worry. They'd had agency staff here before, and Beryl always hated it if a young woman arrived, because she was grumpy and probably jealous. Not my words. In fact, I was told a few years ago that one woman had left the office in tears because Beryl tore her a new one for going out to lunch with some of the other guys. Naturally, this annoyed me, particularly because Beryl thought that she could bully/disrespect agency staff, and I certainly wasn't gonna leave the job because of an angry witch. So cue malicious compliance number 1. For the rest of my time there, I made sure to get dressed up. Makeup, curls, a nice office dress, heels, all that stuff. When Beryl saw me clicking my way down the office the next day, fully dressed up just to scan some paperwork, she scowled at me, but she didn't say anything. The next week, Beryl took some time out of her busy smoking schedule to visit me in my cubicle, the second time she had done so since I started. Some of the paperwork I was scanning in had been stapled together, so I'd asked somebody in the office for a staple remover and a stapler. I was just pulling a staple out when Beryl walks by, and her first words to me are, "What are you doing?" I replied that this document was stapled, and if I put it in the machine, it would jam. She then raises her voice slightly, and she said, "Nobody told you to do that. Just scan each page in separately. Leave the papers alone." I could almost hear her eye roll as she walked away. Cue malicious compliance number 2. So I did. Instead of feeding the papers into the machine to scan, I now scanned everything with staples just folded over. This slowed me down a lot, but hey, that's what I was asked to do. At some point, Beryl walks by, and she saw me flipping pages like that, and she actually smirked at me. The woman thought that she'd flustered me, and I didn't see her reaction. But don't worry, Beryl, you didn't, and I did see your reaction. The paperwork that I was scanning in was boxed up as newest first, so as I got to some of the older papers, these had been moved around a couple of times, and they were slightly scrunched up or folded or similar. Now, a jam scanner wasn't an issue. It had happened a handful of times before. But as I got to the older papers, the jams became more frequent. It was easy to sort out though. Just open the back door of the scanner, roll the paper out, cancel the job, and redo it. At this point, I had gone back to unstapling and restapling because I just wanted to get the job done so I could leave. Of course, Beryl walked in one day. This would have been my 4th week there, and she saw me unjamming the scanner and she flipped her top. She yelled, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And at this point, all heads in the office turned to where we were. That's when I calmly told her, "Hey, the scanner's jammed. I'm just pulling the paper out so I can rescan it. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes." But the woman kept yelling. She said, "At no point were you instructed to perform repairs. We have someone for that. You touch the machine and you can break it. So stop what you're doing and get someone to help you. Why can't you follow simple instructions?" And I'll admit, it took a lot of patience to not argue back with her, which I thought that's what she wanted, but I just said, "Okay, fine. Can I speak to the IT guy to sort this out?" And hearing that, her face just kind of dropped. That's when I knew that she did want me to argue so she could kick me out, because she hesitated and she said, well, the IT guy's off for the rest of the week. Use the other scanner. If you jam it, let me know." She then storms off. Cue malicious compliance number 3. I knew her work schedule at this point, and I knew that she was off the next day, which was a Friday. So I carry on with the one scanner, making sure it didn't jam that day, and I waited until the next morning. Coincidentally, the scanner jams on the first piece of paper I fed into the machine, and who would have thought? Obviously, I call Beryl. She doesn't answer her phone as she wasn't in the office. I just spent the day sitting around without much to do. While sitting around talking to the guys in the office, I learned that the company had been bought by a much larger IT firm, and they just wanted the rights to the software they developed. It also turned out that the CEO of the small company basically paid himself into retirement and then appointed Beryl as the director. Beryl knew that her days were numbered, so she was even more bitter to the staff. The guys working there had been chosen to stay on with the new IT firm, which they were happy with. As I was told, 120,000 employees, 30 developer roles are easy to find. One director role is not. Anyway, when we came back on Monday, you could almost see the vein in her neck throbbing. She had wasted an entire day of whatever her company paid my agency because I wasn't trusted to fix a paper jam. I used to get in a little later than the rest of the staff due to agency perks, but when I got in, she had already had the IT champion perform the skilled job of opening a scanner and pulling a piece of paper out and fixing the damn thing. She didn't even look at me when she said, "The scanners are fixed. Get on with your job and don't mess around." At this point, you may be thinking, well, this is a lot of text for some pretty trivial malicious compliance. Well, I think you'll like the final part. My last week there coincided with a new contract that the company had been given by their new owners. I assume it was some sort of a litmus test. While I don't pretend to understand what it was, the job involved a lot of scanning documents that had been handwritten, which meant more boxes. At the time, a few of the guys who worked there were going on a visit to the new parent company, which were based in the US. I live in the UK. The quote IT champion was one of these guys who went. When the boxes were delivered to my cubicle, Beryl popped by and she said, "These take priority. All of what I said to you is more important than ever. Do not mess around, otherwise you're out the door. Am I clear?" I just said to her, "Yes, ma'am." Now, the paperwork delivered was from the US. Our paper sizes are different. The first piece of paper I fed into the scanner jammed it, a safety lock, because it expected A4 and it got US letter size instead. I then jammed both scanners. Beryl, not being one to turn down a free trip to America, had gone with them. I called her at 11 a.m. UK time, which was 5 a.m. their time. Beryl picked up and she was not impressed. I felt sorry for the folks adjacent to her hotel room when she screamed down the phone, "You've done what? How? Why?" I tell her about the US paperwork and she says, "Can you not fix it?" Cue the final malicious compliance. I tell Beryl, no, you've told me so many times that I'm not allowed to and I can't fix these machines. At this point, Beryl had no idea what to do. She was flustered and she says, "Can't you just do what you can? We need this done." I respond, "What would you want me to do?" She screams, "Fix the scanners because this is really important." To which I respond, "I'm sorry, you told me I can't do that, and honestly, I might break these machines if I mess around with them." She ends the call with, "Just fix it." And that's pretty much it then. I spent the rest of the week just chatting to my colleagues, updating my CV, and applying for jobs. Nobody ever turned up to fix the scanners. When my final week was finished, I said bye to the guys who I worked with, and I wished them luck and left with none of the critical paperwork scanned in. When Beryl got back from her business trip, I learned that she spent one day at the parent company and then left it to the other guys. When the crap hit the fan because nothing was being delivered, they wondered where she was. This was day number 2 into the 5-day business trip. She was at the spa with her phone switched off. She flew out early on day number 5 without seeing any of her colleagues or the parent company. I did keep in touch with a few of the guys afterwards. After this, the guys were transferred to the larger IT firm. They all got a very small salary increase, but they were also able to work from home. Beryl, meanwhile, didn't fare so well. She was initially offered redundancy, which was paid, including pension deals. But when someone complained that she had not been present for the meetings, they found out that she had been sightseeing, shopping, tanning, and getting her hair done all on company time. She ended up being fired. No bonus, no pension, nothing. I quit the agency not long afterwards, and after 1 or 2 moves, I end up with a job that I'm very happy with. The agency were none the wiser about any of this. They just wanted their money, and aside from the one initial checkup call, they left me to it. I hope you enjoyed my story. What a post that was, OP. And I just love knowing that Beryl ended up getting fired and losing her compensation package in the end. Like, it's always nice to know that a crappy boss gets their comeuppance, but guys, I can't help but to think that she knew her time was coming anyways, and she just wanted to mess around and enjoy the business trip as a little vacation, because that's exactly what it seemed like, right? I will, however, say that I believe she didn't count on losing her severance and pension deals, so that was satisfying to know. Let me know your thoughts on that post. About 15 years ago, I worked at a family-owned construction company in a small coastal town. The business had been around since the 1960s, and everyone in the industry knew the owner. He was a respected, hard-working man who built the company from the ground up. Unfortunately, his only son Ken was the opposite of him in every possible way. Ken was one of the supervisors, and he started the year after I started there. Ken got the supervisor position not because he earned it, but because he was born into it. Dad put him into certain trades right out of high school for him to get certain certifications and then gave him the position, despite Ken not knowing a damn thing about managing people. With being the supervisor, he often walked around the place like he owned it, like it was his personal kingdom. The guy was loud, arrogant, self-important, and he was constantly telling people that one day everything would be his. And the thing is, the guy had the certifications, but he lacked the experience. So we had guys who worked in the industry that actually knew way more than him. If he liked you, you might get a pat on the back. If he didn't, you got walked over, insulted, or ignored. And here's a small sample of what working with Ken was like. The guy would constantly sit in his office, playing video games on his phone all day, just letting the foreman do most of his work. When things needed approval, only then would he show his face. He was a trashy guy with a bit too much money, and he often bragged constantly about cheating on his girlfriend while at some party over the weekend. If someone called him out, which believe me, some guys did, he would go red in the face and he would shout something like, "Are you the boss or am I the boss?" Everything just rolled off him because technically he wasn't wrong. Nobody could actually punish him. The boss was his father. It of course annoyed everyone who worked there, including management. On top of that, he also operated equipment like an idiot. He once took a forklift and he drifted it in circles in the snow while recording himself on his phone. He showed the video to us afterwards as proof of his talent. Someone eventually reported it and his dad confronted him. He of course denied everything and he insisted the video never existed. Of course, nothing could be proven, so it blew over. Just one more item added to the list of reasons everyone wanted him gone. We're getting closer to the malicious compliance, trust me. Anytime he butted heads with the guys on the crew, which believe me it happened a lot, Ken would end the conversation by saying, "Hey, if you don't like it, then fire me." He'd have this goofy smile on his face that practically said, "I'm untouchable," and seriously, he truly believed he was untouchable. Then, a year later, came the day everything changed. Ken got into a screaming match with the warehouse manager, this time in front of everyone. All 30 workers on the shop floor. Same insults, same arrogance, same final line. "If you don't like it, then fire me." Except this time, something different happened. From behind us, we then hear a deep voice scream, "Hey, get over here now." Everybody turned around and it was the owner. The shop went silent. Ken just stared at him like he'd been slapped in the face. He of course starts walking away, loudly trash-talking at first. We watch him go into the office, and I could hear shouting through the office door while standing in the shop. When he came out half an hour later, for the first time ever, he wasn't talking. He just quietly walked out and he never returned. Word was, he went into a different industry. And seriously, the warehouse atmosphere changed overnight. Tension dissolved, work got quieter, calmer, and more professional. It's not often that you see a boss firing their own son, but everybody agreed it needed to happen. Yeah, I'm just here wondering what took so damn long. And seriously, kudos to Dad for giving his son the boot. Like, if I was Dad, I would be so embarrassed that my son was treating employees like that and acted like that. Like, yeah, you are my kid, but when you're here, you represent my company and you need to behave yourself. Nothing like a self-entitled kid making the company look bad, on top of adding to liabilities like drifting forklifts in the snow. My word, guys. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, where a smug, entitled Karen family sues the city and it backfires so hard. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.